Hi, today we're going to take a look at the Aukey in-car USB charger. Now I know what you're thinking, big deal, it's a car charger, everyone's got one, you plug it into the cigarette lighter and it gives you some USB ports to charge your gadget. Well, what's so special about this one? Well, the first thing is it has 4 ports, and I know you're thinking, but I've got one that has 4 ports, so what's so great about this? Well, according to Aukey, this can push out up to 48 watts. Now that means you can push out 2.4 amps on each port. So for instance, you could connect 4 iPads and they would all charge at their top speed. You could connect a iPad, iPhone, Galaxy Tab, GoPro, anything you can throw at this, it should be able to power it at its full speed. Now I say should because I haven't tested it yet. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to hook this thing up and see how much power it can output. Now, of course, like most of these higher-end chargers, they say it has a smart chip inside which ensures it charges your device at the highest possible amount of power. They're pretty basic, to be honest, but it does help, especially with some Apple products which, you know, they need certain signals to be sent or certain resistance values to be met before they'll charge at their full rate. So again, we'll see if that actually works. Now, instead of going out to the car to test this, I've just wired up this splitter which allows us to plug this in. It's going to a 12 volt battery here, which is being charged on the fly with this 12 volt charger. So we definitely have enough power supply to this thing. The battery itself could probably handle it, but I've just put this on here as a backup just to make sure. And here you'll see we're measuring the amps that are being consumed and the voltage. You can see it's at 16.5 volts at the moment because it's charging the battery. What this would do is allow us to basically do some math, probably after the video that I can overlay, but it will allow us to do some math to see how much power is being consumed, because obviously although this is outputting say 48 watts, or apparently able to output that much, it might consume a little bit more because there will be some loss converting the 12 volts down to 5 volts. Now before we get too technical, I'm just going to use the PortaPow to measure the output of the power on some devices. So we'll start by plugging in the Aukey charger, and you'll see that the lights come on to signify it's working and that it's powered. I would say that the USB ports are maybe a little bit misaligned. If I bring this closer to the camera for you to see. Now I don't know how easily you can see on camera, but the ports are, they're aligned good enough that you can put something in, but they could be a little bit better. It's not a big complaint, but you know, it's noticeable. Now to keep things simple, the first thing we're going to do to measure the output is to use this PortaPow USB power meter. So I'm going to plug that into the Aukey, and immediately it shows that we're running at 5.19 volts and there's no power flowing through. And I also have a second PortaPow that we can use, and I'm going to plug that into the Aukey so we can test more than one device at a time, because after all, that's the main thing we're interested in. How much power can we really pull out of this if we want to connect all of our devices? So let's connect this one. Okay, now both of our PortaPows are powered. I'm going to start by connecting an iPhone. So let's plug that into one of these. And that's consuming 1.3 amp, 1.5 amp, it's jumping around a bit. You know, it does jump around when you connect an iDevice. They're kind of a bit crazy in their charging. You probably won't be able to see this on the camera, but you can monitor the usage up here. So for instance, right now, let's do some math. This is reading around, it's jumping around so wildly, but around 6 watts. So let's do some math. 16.2 volts, 16.2 at 0.44 amps. That's 7.1 watts. And obviously it's hard to keep up with, but this is ranging at around 6 at the moment. So there are some losses obviously going from 12 volt down to 5 volt. Let's connect another device. So now I'm going to connect an iPad mini, and I'll put that onto the second PortaPow. And that is measuring 1.9 amp, and the other one is measuring around 1 amp. And you can see we've gone up to 1 amp here and around 15.8 volts. So that's around 15 watts, 16 watts. And we're measuring on the USB side 5 watts plus 9.8 watts, so it's pretty much correct. Let's hook up some more gadgets. So now I'm going to connect this portable power bank, which I know can charge at 2 amp, although it's got a pretty full charge, so I don't know how much it's going to pull. So let's connect this. I'll just connect this directly to the Aukey. So we'll have to monitor the power via ampmeter. Let's try and get some space on here. Okay, that's now charging, and we've gone up to, if it steadies, 1.8 amp. And let's connect something else. So now let's connect this other portable battery. I'm not sure how much power this thing is capable of drawing. I don't know if it can actually draw up to 2 amp, but let's connect it and see what happens. So far the Aukey hasn't warmed up to the touch, which is pretty impressive. I've got 2 amp chargers, in-car chargers, which are metal, and the metal acts as a heatsink, and they get very hot very quickly. Let's connect this. Okay, that's now charging, and we're up to 2.1 amp at around 15 volts. So let's do some math on that. Sorry, I'm not very good at on-the-fly math. So what's our voltage? 14.9 times 2.23 is 33 watts. Now I know what you're probably thinking, oh, you said it could go up to 48 watts. Well, the problem is I don't have enough devices that actually demand 2.4 amp to test that if it's true. I don't think many people do, because most devices don't even pull over 2 amp. So far it is pretty steady at 33 watts, and the charger, it's really not warming up. I mean, obviously it's going to be a switch mode converter in there, switch mode power supply, instead of linear, because obviously that would just get extremely hot. For those that are curious, the voltage on the PortaPow, on both of them, is measuring 5.09 volts, so there hasn't been a voltage drop. Now, it's one thing to power all of these devices for a few minutes, but can it do it over a long time? Well, I'm going to leave all of this for a while, pause the video, come back, and we'll see if there's a fire or if everything's finished charging. So I'll see you in a minute. So it's been around 15 minutes, and the Aukey is pretty warm to the touch now. It's not so hot because obviously, look, I can touch it and there's no pain. But it is, you can feel that it's definitely warming up. Now, a lot of the time you wouldn't be using it to its full potential. You're not going to be charging all of these devices, every time you use it. A lot of the time it might just be going to the office, you're going to charge your phone or something like that. But on big trips out of town to the beach or something like that, this is quite possible, especially for families. The kid in the back has the iPad, the mum and dad's got their iPhones. You're charging a portable power bank for later. This is easily possible for the average family. So I want to leave this running for an hour, and I want to see that this thing still works, and that it doesn't get too hot to the point where I think it's dangerous. And then if it lasts an hour, I think I'm going to say thumbs up, this is a decent charger. If it dies, down. So let's leave it, and I'll cut the video, and we'll come back after it's sat for a full hour. So everything's been running for about an hour now, and the Aukey, it's got a little bit warmer, but nothing serious. I can still easily touch it without any pain or instinct to pull my hand away. Our power usage has decreased a little bit. Now, I don't think this is because the Aukey is failing to push out the power. It's just because the devices are starting to become charged. Now, I tried to combat that by opening the iPad and the iPhone, putting the screens on full brightness, and then playing YouTube streams. So basically they increase their power usage, so they need to pull more power to charge a battery at the same state. But we are at less power, so let's do some math. 15.3 volts times 1.76 amp, around 27 watts. So yeah, the power usage has decreased, but it's still a pretty high amount. So overall, I'm actually really impressed with this little charger. It's powered all these devices for around an hour, and all of them seem to be charging at their full speed. So if you had this in your car, especially if you have a large family with lots of gadgets, or even if you don't have a large family, you're just me who's a gadget addict, then this is going to be the one for you. Of course, I haven't done any long-term testing, so after a month or two, maybe I'll add some overlays to this video saying that yes, everything's still working okay, or no, there was a problem. But to be honest, I'm not expecting a problem, so we'll see. Oops, that's a short circuit. So that sucks. These two wires touched, short-circuited, and everything turned off. Now at first I was thinking, oh no, have I just blown the Aukey and every device attached to it? And then I realized that no, of course I haven't. I've just blown the fuse inside my multimeter. I guess that's better, but at the same time the fuses for this are kind of hard to get and they're kind of expensive. I have to go all the way to Manila to get them, and yeah, I think they're like 300 or 400 peso per piece. So there you go, lesson learned. The thing is, I was thinking, oh, I'll put a bit of tape around here to make sure they don't touch, and then, you know, laziness. So whoops. So anyway, the Aukey in-car charger, 4-port, up to 48 watts, gets a big thumbs up from me. I put it under a stress test and it survived just fine. So for me, it's a big thumbs up, and the price isn't even that high. So you're much better off buying one of these than buying multiple cheaper chargers, especially because they burn out all the time. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe.